Welcome back, DIVEBOMB IndyCar Podcast, and apologies that we are slightly late this week, but we are here with very good reason as we're going to round up all the news regarding the Indianapolis 500 with the open test coming up quickly after Long Beach. Before we know it, the month of May will be around the corner. Before we delve into it a little bit further, we have an announcement. We're going to play in an old podcast clip with Fox Sports analyst Townsend Bell with a little comment that he made towards the end of our interview with him. So here's a clip from Townsend before we go into it a little bit further.
How do we contribute, guys, to Divebomb? Do you have a GoFundMe?
Just read our articles, listen to the podcast.
Okay, well, let's start you should start one just to get you guys to your first Indy 500 next year.
Let's do that.
Let's do it.
I'll throw in the first $100.
Let's do it. That would be awesome.
Let's do
Thank
it.
you very much.
So you may see where this is going after Townsend's suggestion for us to set up a GoFundMe to get us to the Indianapolis 500 in 2026. The good news is it is happening. Both myself and Archie will be present at the 110th running of the Indianapolis 500 for the full 2 weeks of practice, qualifying and the race. And we're very much looking forward to it. Blame Townsend if you see us at the race. It's all his fault that we're going along. But we're very much looking forward. The first race we're covering in person. So an absolute delight. We're very much looking forward to May we're going to be there in just over a month's time. So we can't wait for it to come around. And yeah, we're finally going to be at an IndyCar race.
I mean, as this episode drops, providing it does drop on Saturday, the 11th of April, it will be exactly a month until we fly out. So, yeah, it's been a long time coming, this announcement. We have kept it under wraps for a good few months now. But, yeah, it's incredibly exciting. And the amount of people that we have kind of spoken to just off the record about this within the IndyCar world that we have informed that this is happening, and everyone has just said, it is absolutely incredible. You're going to have a blast, and it is just about the greatest thing ever. And yeah, it's going to be amazing, just kind of full circle for us after 3+ years now of bringing you this content and covering IndyCar, and finally be able to connect with all the people that we have spoken to over that time. We've spoken to a good few people off the record since we formalized this, actually now back in January. So it's been a little while until we, formalized credentials and everything before we could definitely put this out in the world. But everyone that we've spoken to has just said it is just about the greatest thing, and it's going to be amazing. And it's pretty full circle for us, really, after almost 3 years, and it will be 3 years by the time we head out there, of doing this show, to actually come and meet everyone who we've interacted with, whether that's fans, whether that's fellow media personnel, drivers. I honestly cannot quite put into words how exciting this is. And yeah, it's just an amazing reward, it feels like, for all of our, I guess, hard work and coverage over the last few years. To actually finally get out to a race is amazing. Honestly, it's amazing, and I can't wait for all the content that we're going to bring you guys, because it's going to be a hell of a 2 weeks. And we're out there for the full 2 weeks as well. We're going the whole hog and doing it all, and having the full experience from a media perspective, obviously.
And I know we had the fundraiser going started from Townsend. I know some of you very kindly donated to that fundraiser. So at this point, just a massive thank you to everybody who did donate anything towards the fundraiser. Obviously, that money all makes a massive difference coming from the UK. It's not a cheap flight. It's not a cheap accommodation. It's not a cheap car to get around Indianapolis. So I really appreciate any financial support in being provided. That link is still open if anybody wants to donate. The link will be in the description and the future episodes as well. If you wish to contribute, you're more than welcome to. And we do really, really appreciate anybody who has donated. And to Townsend Bell for kicking us all off right at the start and taking us to the position that we're in now. So just a huge thank you to all of you there who have very kindly donated to that fund.
And it's also a thank you to everyone who's kind of interacted with us over the last 3 years, because we spoke about this, I guess, a lot last year when our Spotify rap stats came out, and we were quite astounded by some of the growth in the numbers and kind of how worldwide people were tuning into this show. But it's actually thanks to everyone who's tuned into the podcast, tuned into our written content over the last few years, and supported us, that we were able to grow as we have done and make, I don't know, just get ourselves into this position where this is something that is feasible for us to do. It's amazing. So yeah, just thank you to everyone who's been on this journey. And well, it's only just beginning, because May is going to be a ride.
Hashtag is it May yet? Hashtag very much applies to us for the coming weeks. And Archie, it's not going to be just the two of us in May. The more the merrier. So as he has done in the last couple of years, his occasional appearance is back, but this time for the full month of May. James Scott, welcome back. Looking forward to having you in May. And you're having to put up with both me and Archie for a couple of weeks. So I do feel slightly bad for you, but hopefully you enjoy it and are looking forward to it as much as we are.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to be heading out to Indianapolis as well. It's been quite a strange journey to get here. As in, I haven't done the kind of coverage that you guys have. I think I started some full IndyCar coverage in 2022 and then scaled back in July 2024, almost as the IndyCar hybrid came in. It was a slightly bizarre thing, as soon as the hybrid racing came in, I was doing a little bit less, but then having you guys to have the opportunity to join you on the end of season podcast in 2024 and then restarting from now, it's just gonna be so exciting to actually be there on the ground, seeing everything happening and trying to get as much content as possible, because we've done some really good episodes of the season review show, and accidentally predicting Christian Rasmussen to win a race, which I might end up having to tell him in person, because who knows, he's not on Twitter, so I haven't been able to tweet the clip to him of that prediction. But it's just going to be so exciting to be on the ground at the time, and having seen what Indianapolis has to offer, because there's only so much you can get from the TV screen, and we've had the pleasure of covering it for, I guess, almost 4 years cumulatively. You guys have not missed a moment, and it's going to be an absolute pleasure to share it with you both.
James, keen golfer, are you more excited about the driving side and the Indy 500 as an event, or playing the Brickyard Crossing?
Oh no, it's going to be the sounds. I mean, the Brickyard Crossing looks like a special golf course, but I think there's nothing's going to quite compare to that day one. I feel like it's the type of thing that's going to absolutely blow my socks off. There are a lot of good-looking golf courses in the world, and it's going to be cool, but there's going to be absolutely nothing like that first day of practice. I'm 100% looking forward to that slightly more. But yes, you have mentioned Brickyard Crossing, and I'm excited to give that a go too.
No Weedy 500 mentioned so far. We're letting everybody down at this point by not mentioning our excitement for the greatest spectacle in hot dog racing, whatever they call it. I mean, what an event that's going to be. They're running it again. So we get to see the Weenie 500 in person. What an honour.
Well, we've had James's take. What are you most looking forward to, Dan? Weenie 500? Is that
Weenie
it?
500. Yeah. The Weenie 500. And yeah, the Weenie 500. That's what I'm most looking forward to. The Weenie 500.
I mean, I guess to be more sincere, but maybe you really are looking forward to the Weenie 500 above everything else. But I would kind of concur with what you said, James. Like, I actually cannot wait for that first experience of getting to see the cars blowing by at 230 plus miles per hour, going up towards 240 miles per hour, especially when it gets to Fast Friday and the qualifying boost goes up. I mean, that's going to be incredible. I think the one thing that stood out from our chat with Will Buxton last year after his first 500 was kind of what he was saying about the race day ceremonies, and that how he had to kind of desensitize himself throughout the month to how incredible it was, because he had to really concentrate on doing his job as a broadcaster. But the fact that the pre-race ceremonies, and despite there being 350 plus thousand people there, and the taps were played and it was pin drop silence, I think those sorts of moments as well, going beyond on track, and obviously what I've mentioned about getting to meet all the people that we've interacted with virtually over these last 3 years, I think will be quite incredible, just to witness the pageantry of what is the biggest single day sporting event in the world.
I just think the sheer number of people there is going to be the most impressive thing as well. Like, we have not seen, I mean, Archie, I know you've been to lots of massive football games, and I've been to Wembley when it's completely full, but I think there's going to be 4 times that many people in the same sporting arena is going to be so exciting. I'm so excited. I watched Doug Bowles give a tour of the media center on YouTube as one of the videos that came out about 5 years ago. I wanted to have a look to see where we were going to be. And yeah, there's a 5-minute tour of the media center, along with other parts of the IMS facility. There was one of Brickyard Crossing and other different parts. But yeah, that looks like the most exciting place to be as well. There's some great views. There's some special places in there. The seat dedicated to Robin Miller. But yeah, I'm so excited. I literally sat on YouTube and wanted to have a look at all the media center to see if there was any little clips. And I was having a guided tour. It was lovely.
I've done the exact same thing. I've watched the exact same video that you're talking about, so that's quite amusing. I would say, Dan, because obviously James kind of reflected on his journey covering the sport. I mean, where did this all start? It was the season review podcast on, not even podcast, was it? It was just a YouTube video in 2023, and that was kind of the foundation of our kind of dual IndyCar coverage. And then I guess by that April, maybe start of May, it was a podcast, and man, here we are 3 years later.
Yeah, it was a podcast which we expected not many people to listen to. More people listened to it than we thought would, and more people enjoy it than we thought would. So hopefully you still do enjoy the podcast. And yeah, we've had a lot more drivers on than I thought we'd ever imagined, and a lot higher caliber of driver than I thought we'd imagined. We've made some really, really good friends of the show over the last couple of years. Like if you look back a couple of years ago, I'm actually saying Will Buxton was one of the closest friends of this show, or that Louis Foster is effectively the third host, a full-time IndyCar driver is effectively part host this podcast. It's just incredible, like how I guess firstly how quickly the first 3 years have really, really gone by, and just how much we've really, really enjoyed them. And every episode is really, really different. We get to speak to so many different people with so much different insight, and we just review just the coolest motorsport out there. There's always so much to talk about. The community is always really, really superb, and that close-knit family feel is what makes it amazing. And really looking forward to finally ticking off an IndyCar race in person, because I feel like we were having a bit of an asterisk covering a series for a race we've never actually been to. So we can finally check that box and not have to worry about that again.
And I mean, it's not just an IndyCar race, like it's so much more being the 500 as well. But yeah, I would say, like, on the point you make, Dan, like, we've done all of this virtually, and doing so virtually can be a challenge, because obviously you don't get to meet the people, and you don't get the sort of access that you obviously would get, if you're there in person every week. So I'm so excited to see what we can produce for you guys over the 2 weeks that we are out there, and we actually do have the full access. We're in person. We get access to all the drivers rather than kind of being virtual, and obviously the opportunity is always understandably the priority going to those in person. So it'll be amazing to kind of be a part of that cohort as well. And yeah, bring it on.
One thing we haven't mentioned, the IMS Museum. We get to see the refurbished museum, which everyone has raved about. So that's another thing on the list. But let's move on into what May's race is going to look like. We haven't really talked about this much on the podcast, just because there's been so much racing on, and it hasn't been our attention. We're going to give a little roundup of kind of all that's going to happen, how the field's going to get to 33, and kind of we're just going to pick a couple of storylines each that we're really, really looking forward to come May. But let's go over the grid and some of the changes that we've seen, or the confirmations that we've had since we kind of really last spoke about it, which I told us was probably the off-season, considering how much times have changed. But the usual one-off entries, a lot of them aren't really huge surprises. Let's start off with Helio Castroneves at Marchand Racing, obviously a team that he part owns. His 25th Indianapolis 500 this year. He's obviously going for the drive for 5, wishing to be the first driver in history to win 5 Indianapolis 500s. And on the same day, we also saw Takuma Sato announced a Rahal Letman Racing. Obviously, he was kind of one of the real stars of last year's race, qualified in the front row until he had an issue in pit lane. Obviously, a 2-time winner in 2017 and 2020, and looking to kind of continue that trajectory RLO have had at the 500. He's really, really brought that team forward. So good to see another multi-time winner back at the Indy 500. We've then had Ed Carpenter, confirmed at Ed Carpenter Racing. Shock horror there. I'm sure nobody saw that coming. But he is back in his own team for May, obviously, has a very strong relationship with the state of Indiana and Indianapolis. So a very big race for Ed Carpenter there. And it's been long overdue an Indy 500 victory for Ed Carpenter, so can 2026 finally be the year he ticks that off his list? The other driver we've seen confirmed in the last couple of weeks is Connor Daly at Giant Reinbold Racing. We obviously knew Jack Harvey was going to be at the team. That was announced a very long time ago. Daly, obviously an Indiana native. We all know what the crowd's like once he takes the lead of the race. We've seen that a couple of times. And still one of the finest drivers around the Indy 500. Has gone very well there in the last couple of years, and I think he would send the state of Indiana into bedlam should he cross the yard of bricks first, and that's going to be one of the coolest stories should Conor Daly be successful. But those are the full confirmations we've had kind of in the last couple of weeks at Carpenter, Castro Neves, Daly, and Takuma Sato. So just for you two, out of those four, is there anyone who particularly kind of stands out for you? Anybody you're particularly looking forward to race this May?
I think if you put it in the context of what the biggest storyline would be if they won, it's actually, to be fair, it's hard to split between Castro Neves and Daly. I think I'd arguably, it is impossible to split, to be fair. I think Daly winning the race as the only Indiana-born driver, obviously Ed Carpenter kind of raised in Indiana since I think he was 8 maybe when he moved there. But Daly is the only proper hometown driver. I think if he was to get over the line, win the race, win not only his first Indy 500 but his first IndyCar race would be amazing. I think especially considering, the fact that quite cruelly he's been left without a drive this year, despite particularly on the ovals with JHR last year having been so solid. So I think obviously I'm going to watch out for him, and obviously for a Ryan Reinbold team as well that came so close last year with Ryan Hunter-Reay before he ran out of fuel in that final pit stop exchange when. Well, he was tipped to come out in the race lead, so that was brutal for them. But yeah, obviously Castro Neves, if he was to win his 5th and become the outright all-time record wins holder, would be incredible. Sato's always box office as well, and obviously Carpenter with his links to Indiana, as you mentioned, Dan, and Indianapolis as the city, would also be a very cool winner because he's come close in the past, obviously, as well.
Yeah, I think, Archie, you've covered all of them nicely. I feel a particularly nice one perhaps for R. First could be Helio Castro Neves. I feel like that was perhaps the first Indy 500 where I was 100% invested in the whole month, having watched it. That's now going to be, 5 years ago. Having watched it in passing in previous years, difficulties watching it in the UK. It used to be on different TV channels and behind paywalls. But yeah, I remember watching Helio Castro Neves the first time it had fans back and winning that. And that was a particularly cool moment, and what a move to do it in the end. And that was a real fight of an Indy 500 as well, with just the 2 cautions. So watching him win would be particularly special. But I think, every time you see a one-time entry up there at the front, it's always an exciting experience, and you can't look past a Conor Daly or an Ed Carpenter winning the whole thing, because whilst they may be long shots, the stories that would go with it would be fantastic. Ed Carpenter has come close. He's been on the pole. He finished 2nd in 2018, and Conor Daly, he led the most laps in 2021, that 500 that Castro Neves won. Yeah, it's just going to be so exciting to see what he can do, and I feel like he'll be hungrier than ever as well.
So the next question is how we're going to reach a field of 33. All those confirmations bring us to 31 confirmed cars for May's race. Now, Andretti Global had obviously traditionally entered a 4th car with Marco Andretti for long periods of time, but as we know, he retired in the off-season. The big suggestion was that Colton Herta would be the one to kind of step into that entry, being a natural fit. He was off for F2. They were off for the entire month of May. So it made a lot of sense that he come and slot into that car whilst he was away racing from F2. And obviously still a lot of interest there from Andretti's side and Herta's side to have a successful Indy 500 campaign. However, due to the ongoing conflicts in the Middle East, the Bahrain and Jeddah rounds of Formula 2 were cancelled, and they were rescheduled to Miami and Montreal. Montreal shares the same weekend as the Indy 500, hence that Herta won't be able to compete with his priorities lying in F2, and Andretti have since confirmed they're only going to be racing 3 cars. So that's one of the question marks that's been unfortunately eliminated, not through anybody's fault really, just a bit of an unfortunate chain of circumstances there, which means we won't see Colton Herta. So the next question is, how do you get those 2 extra cars? Well, there's quite a large suggestion. This is all based on Marshall Pruitt of Racer, who's got all the sources that we don't have. But first, it looks like Jacob Abel will be one of the 2 drivers coming back this May. Obviously, he was bumped last year with Dale Quinn Racing, lost his full-time driver at the team, but he's going to come back with Abel Motorsports, obviously the team that his father runs. And yes, they might be a small entry, and you might not give him much of a chance, but I would say look back at what RC Unison did in 2023, and against all odds really made the field. But Nobody was expecting him to. It'd be nice to see Jacob Abel in the field, considering that he didn't really get a fair shot in his full-time IndyCar career. So it'd be good to see him in the field. And then the last question is what's going to be happening with the 33rd entry, which is a bit of a bigger question mark. Now, we all want to see bumping, but I think 34 does seem like a bit of a stretch currently. But you never quite know how things are going to pan out. Obviously, Prem won the big question marks at the pole last year, Robert Schwartzman, but doesn't seem like they're going to be coming back for May. They're obviously still seeking investment to run their cars. But there's a big suggestion that AJ Foyt Racing could be the team who take one of the Chevrolet engine leases and they field a third entry, which would take us up to 33. Driver's a little bit less clear, but a lot of suggestions that Catherine Legg could be the one to participate in the race. Obviously, he's done it with Rahul Lepmananaga Racing and Dale Coyne Racing in recent seasons. Didn't do the Indy 500 last year, but she was obviously a very, very popular addition to the 33 and definitely overachieved in some of the years that she had done it in comparison to her teammates. So that entry is a bit less set in stone. The Abel one seems fairly certain. The Foyt one, we're not 100% sure on, seemingly, but Catherine Legg seems to be the front runner for that entry there. So that's how the field of 33 looks. Shame that we might not get bumping, but beggars can't be choosers.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpick there. I think first of all, screw F1 for making that clash once again. I'm sure we mentioned that at the time, that it's just like far from ideal. And to be honest, the Indy 500 is bigger than the Canadian Grand Prix, so hopefully we'll usurp whatever's going on there. But it's a big shame that Andretti couldn't field Herta, because obviously he never really got a proper goodbye to IndyCar when it was decided that he'd go off and pursue this F1 dream. So it would have been nice to see him back. Shame that he isn't. It's understandable why they wouldn't run that extra car. Obviously, Herta would slot in very seamlessly, having only left the team at the end of last season. And Marco, when he was doing that one-off after retiring from full-time, again, it was that very seamless situation. So, makes sense. It would be good to see Jacob Abel back. Of course, last year was tough. Dale Coyne Racing had a real struggle, and he was kind of never even close to really making the field. So, I guess he's one person who really doesn't want bumping to happen, so that he automatically does make the field. And I think he'll have a good shot regardless, given how strong Chevy have been at the 500 in recent years. And yeah, Abel showed well when they turned up with Enison in 23, it wasn't it? So, yeah, that was... I'd be excited to see Jacob at least get his shot to race, because he didn't get a fair shot last year, really, with Coyne. I think if it is Catherine Legg then in the final entry, I mean, that's obviously big for the sport. I think, obviously, having a female driver in the race is big for the attention, and I guess just expanding that viewership and the demographic as well that are interested in racing. And she's no slouch either. I mean, obviously, she showed in that season with a Dale Coyne Racing team that was struggling, but when she did those oval events, she was right there with Jack Harvey, and she was certainly competitive. Had some semi-decent results when you consider how much that team was struggling. So it would be awesome to see her in a Foyt entry, where obviously Foyt have been really strong. They've got the Penske link still, so that would be really cool. And yeah, it would be a shame if bumping doesn't happen. Obviously, we remark a lot about the beautiful brutality of Indianapolis, and nothing kind of exemplifies that more than that second day of qualifying, where you have last chance qualifying, someone gets bumped, and then you go straight into the fight for pole. Someone's absolutely elated, and someone's just had the worst day of their racing life. So it's brutal, but it also is part of the spectacle. And I mean, ultimately, you've got to get to 33 first. And if you don't get to 33, then traditions die. So, yeah, that's got to be the priority. But then if you can get to 34, always feels harsh sending one home. We'd rather get to 35 or 36 than 6 and there be a few. But, yeah, bumping is obviously such a big part of this race.
Yeah, I think it's bump days are always perhaps some of the most memorable that we've had, and even in the last few seasons. But yeah, as you say, getting to 33 is of course the most important priority. I mean, last time we owed Stephen Wilson and Dragon Speed Racing a debt of gratitude. I think I said that last time I was on this podcast as well, that we got to 33 in 2022. But yeah, having Catherine Legg join the field would be a superb addition, and especially in an AJ Foyt car that might be reasonably competitive. So Santino Ferrucci, obviously with an exceptional record around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, finished 5th last year as well. So it would be exciting to see what she might be able to do, and then giving Jacob Abel another shot at the race, which was so cruel to him last year, and almost a very bizarre bump day. I have very, very vivid memories of Rinus VeeKay pulling out his own time to try and go faster, and then in the end went slower, and it looked like it was in jeopardy. But I think there were a few factors that meant that neither Dale Coyne racing car was able to go faster. But it is, as you say, beautiful brutality, and something that we will miss. But as you say, the tradition of getting to 33 and it being the 33 fastest cars is the most important thing, and that's what we should aspire to initially.
And how about Robert Schwartzman as a future kind of pub quiz question? One and done at the Indy 500. Pole as a rookie for a rookie team, and just kind of disappears very, very quietly, and kind of haven't really heard from him.
What has happened to Schwartzman, by the way?
I don't know.
Posting all these memes on Twitter all the time about where he is or isn't.
Yeah, he's at all the races. Like, Ilot's hanging around trying to get opportunities, whereas Schwartzman, there were obviously all those reports that maybe he wasn't having a great time, and then he dispelled them, but he's not shown a particular keenness, has he, to be, or I mean, this is just pure guesswork, but we've barely heard his name in any reporting associated with Prema. If they were to come back in any form, which Marshall Pruitt reports now won't be until after the 500, I don't think, if at all. It's always been Ilot. And if it would be a one-car outfit, it would be Ilot. So, maybe Schwartzman just didn't really click with American racing, didn't really click with IndyCar racing, but not bad that his IndyCar legacy is going to be pole as a rookie at the Indy 500. I mean, we said it so much at the time, and I think it stands even more true now, given he might not have any more of an IndyCar career. What a story. I mean, one of the all-time great stories. Unbelievable.
So we're just going to run over some of the key storylines that we're going to look out for this May. We think you might want to look out for this May. Just as some really interesting stories to follow throughout the month, and the potential significance of these events happening. So Archie, do you want to take us through kind of one of your key storylines coming forward or looking forward to this May?
Yeah, I think arguably the biggest, maybe the second biggest alongside, whether Alex Palou can be denied, is Penske. I mean, last year was an absolute catastrophe at a race which they have been so incredible. Obviously, Newgarden was defending 2 Indy 500 crowns from 23 and 24. And obviously, I guess all hell broke loose starting really that qualifying Sunday when both Newgarden and Power were disqualified from the Fast 12 session, moved to the back row. McLaughlin had already had a massive crash in the pre-Fast 12 practice, going airborne. I mean, it was a huge accident. It was pretty impressive crash. The visuals were amazing from that one. But yeah, that was disastrous. And then race week, they fire basically their entire leadership team, headed by team president Tim Cindric, and it's just chaos. And then obviously you get to race day, and Scott McLaughlin doesn't even see the green flag. He crashes on the pace laps, and absolute heartbreak for the guy who was on pole the year prior. I mean, it's astonishing. And then Newgarden coming from the back of the field, I mean, he's up in the top 5 by way before even 100 laps, I think, if I recall it correctly. And then he has a fuel-related problem and has to retire from the race, and that charges over what looked like a possible three-peat, completely denied, and just ended up being an absolute nightmare for Penske. So you've got McLaughlin wanting to bounce back from that ultimate heartbreak of having qualified for the race, but he may as well have been bumped because he didn't even start it. And then obviously Newgarden looking to rebound as well after being denied that third title in as many years. And just Penske as a whole, obviously off the back of what was their worst season since the turn of the millennium. I mean, it was that bad. So yeah, that's really something to watch out for, how they will bounce back from last year's May campaign.
I'm going to look at defending champion Alex Palou. I feel like he's been so imperious in IndyCar now for so long. The champion in 2023, 2024, and so dominantly last year in 2025, but also with a surprisingly strong record at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. He did hold the pole speed record until Scott McLaughlin smashed it in 2024 after winning the pole in 2023. He was the runner-up in just his second time at the Indianapolis 500 in 2021. He was exceptional in 2022, falling to the back of the field on around lap 90 because of a pit lane being closed as he was less than 100 feet from the entry pit commit line. and so he just had to drive through. And then, of course, last year's winner as well. He has this reputation, and rightly so, of being a road course specialist, and he's always strong on street circuits. But 2025 Indianapolis 500 winner, and well deserved. He is incredibly strong, and his precise driving style really suits the brutality of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway as well. So I think keeping an eye on Alex Palou to defend his crown, it would be impressive if he did so. And he is certainly poised. Chip Ganassi Racing are always strong. So he may be a tough man to beat once again.
Another former winner to look out for this coming May is Ryan Hunter-Reay. Obviously came remarkably close to winning the race last year with Brian Reinbold until he did a run out of fuel in pit lane. He was only about 25 laps from taking one of the biggest Indy 500 shock wins of all time. And his ride at Aaron McLaren for 2026 was based on the disappointment they had last year after chatting to Tony Kanaan in the parking lot after his fuel ran dry and his Indianapolis 500 chances came to an end. But the kind of resurgence is there coming into this year, is coming into a team that kind of lack experience from an Indy 500 competitiveness standpoint. He's going to really drive that team forward with his experience, and as he proved last year, he is still very quick at Indy 500. And I don't think you can count him out despite it being his only race of the year. So kind of feeding off that disappointment, is he going to bounce back and be able to take a really against the odds victory? But now you look at it, the odds are very much in his favour based on the strength of Aaron McLaren the last couple of years, his winning experience, how well he drove the race last year. And I just think that kind of arc of disappointment and turning into something that could be really special based off of that could be a really interesting story this May, especially if Ryan Hunter-Reay to end up in victory lane.
I would also say to look out for Mick Schumacher as a fourth storyline, the first of that illustrious racing family to attempt to qualify, or if there is no bumping, to qualify and race the Indy 500. He's obviously only done one oval race at Phoenix early in the season, qualified very impressively in fourth, but the race itself was quite the baptism of fire. So to go into only his second ever oval race on the high-speed Indianapolis Motor Speedway, 500 miles in the biggest race in the world, I mean, that's going to be quite something. It's an interesting rookie class. You've got obviously last year's Indy Next top two, Dennis Hauger and Kyle Collette, who, I mean, Hauger didn't win a race on an oval despite being so dominant in the scheme of things in Indy Next last year. Collette's also shown well on ovals. Hauger still performed very, very strongly. Had a few runner-up finishes. I think he was only off the podium once in that Indy Next season. But I'd keep an eye out for that rookie crop. Obviously, Jacob Abel falls into that, having not actually qualified for the Indy 500 and raced it, having been bumped last year. But definitely Schumacher is the big rookie to watch out for, given the background behind it, but also as he tries to forge his own legacy over here in the States after not exactly having a Formula One stint that went to plan for him, trying to follow in the footsteps of his father, 7-time F1 champion Michael Schumacher. So big deal for Mick this, and I'm very interested to see how he fares as the first Schumacher to race the 500.
Speaking of impressive names to race the Indy 500, Will Power is absolutely going to be in the mix, and I'm really excited to see how he gets on at his new team with Andretti Global. Of course, 2018 winner with Team Penske. He's not had much luck around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in recent times, perhaps most notably in the last couple of years, having an incident that took him out of the running and potentially a win in the 2024 edition. Yeah, so with Andretti Global, who typically race extremely well at the Indy 500, Marcus Ericsson moved forward from 9th last year and probably should have won the race, if we're being frank, last year, but that was not to be. But their qualifying struggles are also particularly important to note. Last year, Ericsson was the highest Andretti car in 9th, but then Carl Kirkwood was 23rd, Colton Herta 27th, Marco Andretti 29th. So can statistically IndyCar's greatest ever qualifier drag the team that struggles with qualifying at the 500 up the field? And if that is the case, well, then it'd be tough to say that Andretti Global and Will Power would be out of the running. It feels like the missing piece that Andretti need in having such a supremely fast driver joining a team that typically race well at the 500. It could be a success story.
The last driver we're going to highlight now is Pato O'Ward, who has obviously been extremely close winning the Indy 500 year after year after year. Finished fourth in 2021 after competing for the victory. 2022 obviously lost that last lap shootout to Ericsson. 2023 had that collision with Ericsson whilst chasing the victory with 10 laps to go. 2024 we obviously got overtaken by Newgarden with just 2 corners to go, and then last year finished third after being competitive for the majority of the day. And it's about time that Pato O'Ward finally crosses those yard of bricks first after 200 laps and takes the Indianapolis 500 victory that so many people want to see him take. It gets to a point where you're knocking on the door so much you finally got to enter, and O'Ward needs to get it done. There's a bit of an expectation at McLaren now that they've been around the series for so long that this kind of success should be happening by now, and yet they're yet to win an Indy 500 or an IndyCar Championship. And O'Ward's been long seen as the top guy at the team. And can he be the one to finally bring that victory to McLaren at the 500 and finally break his duck of all the close calls that he's had in recent seasons?
Talking of close calls, to be fair, we're done with the storylines, but I would just mention as an honourable mention Scott Dixon, who is not getting any younger. He's had more laps than anyone in the Indy 500 ever. Still only has that one win in 2008. So that quest continues. Did you predict he would win, James? I feel like you often predict he's going to win.
Second year in a row that I predicted him to win. So hopefully this time with myself and Yo2 in attendance, it's the one.
Yes, and I mean, talking storylines, I mean, if he did win that second, arguably greatest of all time, certainly the modern greatest, and that would obviously just further crown that if he does win a second 500. So just as a kind of additional storyline, alongside Castro Neves' drive for 5, I think Dixon's drive for 2, which doesn't sound quite as nice. I don't know what we could call that, but yeah, certainly one to watch out for too.
I can't remember who I predicted. Do you remember, Archie?
I remember that I went for McLaughlin just because Indy's full of stories, and I think that would be a hell of a story given.
I think I went for O'Ward, I think, but I could be wrong in saying that. And remember, there's a lot on the line because we need to see who picks 18th in the draw. So the draw day on a Fast Friday is going to be fascinating. Yeah. Very important to see who selects 18th. And what speed is it? Is it Rinus VK's lap 2 this year?
Lap 2, yeah.
One of Rinus VK's laps, we will confirm which one before May, is the traditional who can get closest to qualifying speed in February challenge to one driver's specific lap. So
yeah, we'll verify these. Maybe our first end of day pod, if we remember, we'll verify these so that we can certainly keep an eye out, or maybe towards the end of that first week as we actually get towards qualifying, where those predictions will either come true or fall flat on their face. Most likely the latter.
Absolutely. And as Archie mentioned, just to outline some of the content that we're planning to do a daily podcast at least every day of track running. There might be a little bit more on the days there is no on-track running, but expect loads of interviews with drivers, as will be in the bullpens every morning. We'll also be in the press conferences as well. So expect lots of snippets there from every driver about their day. You'll be hearing all the news and all the stories from the Speedway every single day, as well as obviously the written stuff that we usually do for the website. And you might see some social media behind the scenes and what do you want to see on our stories. So make sure you have a look at that and engage with that if that's if you want to see our content. But we'll speak about it closer to the time, I guess, kind of on our first end of day recap and catch you all up there. But just to round off, is there anything non-racing related we're particularly looking forward to doing, apart from the golf?
I just bloody looking forward to being at the track. I honestly, I've not really had too much.
Can't get away from the racing.
I'd like to, I mean, I think maybe the Lucas Oil Stadium, pretty cool. Like, I'm a casual NFL observer, but I've been told it's quite a domineering kind of presence of a building on the horizon almost. So we'll have to check that out.
I'm thinking Saturday. I would like to watch the parade through the centre of Indianapolis. I'm not sure how we're going to go about that, where we're going to park, what we're going to do. But
why don't we join in?
Really exciting. Well, you start wheeling around at the back somewhere.
Yeah, we just whatever hire car we get. One of you two guys, being the guys who actually drive here, can just apply to join in, or let's get on Louis Foster's float or something.
I've heard a Jeep Compass or similar looks great when it's got an IndyCar driver on the top of
it. Jeep Compass.
I was going to go on a different tangent. I'm going to say Raising Cane's. Get American food down my
You're all
stomach.
about the food, Dan.
I am all about the food. Absolutely. If anyone knows any food
you're not going to
spots,
find a Weatherspoons. You're not going to find a Weatherspoons out there.
if anyone's got any food spots, put them in the comments, and we'll have to.
Isn't it called
Charlie?
Is there something called Charlie's? There's a place.
Oh,
outside.
Charlie Brown's.
What's it called?
It's like a
Yes, there we go.
It's like a breakfast kind of place. I think it is. Yeah,
We've
very
got to
famous.
try that. We've got to try that. Maybe put, like a live podcast in there, like a live review on one of the days off, maybe the Tuesday.
Well, for clarification, these podcasts won't be strictly racing. We'll also be speaking about 3 random Brits trying to tackle America, which will be interesting. Different universe over there, really. Like you may not seem it, but it is every time you go there. Everything's just bigger. I wouldn't say better because we've got the best plug sockets in the world, but
we have to buy loads of converters. Yay!
And we should also say what might be fun is if we get it organised, we're probably going to see the Indiana Fever, so we get to see Caitlin Clark. So if she plays, which she better do, so that'd be fun as well. But look, we'll leave it there. As we said right at the start, we're obviously really looking forward to this. The donation link is in the comments below, or the description below, should you wish to donate to us. And we said any donations are really appreciated. And if you have any ideas of what you want to see us do, anything that you want to see on the daily podcast, put them in the comments below. We'll give a read of them. Any suggestions on what you can do or eat or see in Indianapolis, which might not be in the mainstream tourism suggestions, let us know. I don't think Indianapolis is probably a very big place for tourism, is it? I don't think people dream of going to America and go, yes, Indianapolis outside of May. Sure, that's a good question. We need to work out what is the tourism for Indianapolis in May versus every other month of the year.
What's the number one tourist attraction that's not IMS?
Must be the Lucas Oil Stadium, I guess, or
Okay,
in and around, because there's Indiana Dunes National Park, which is like a couple of hours drive away. But I feel like a couple of hours for us in the UK is me to you, Archie. Whereas a couple of hours drive in America, they feel like that's just a short hop. You know, you get in, you put the tunes on, and suddenly you're there. Whereas I feel like that'd be an expedition for us. So we'll have to see.
So indeed, the top tourist attraction is IMS, and then it is the Children's Museum of Indianapolis, not the Children's Grand Prix of Alabama or whatever it was called, Indianapolis Zoo. Then it's Lucas Oil Stadium, Central Canal. I wasn't aware that was a thing. Newfields, which is an art gallery, Benjamin Harrison Presidential Site, the Eiteljorg Museum, Cambridge Fieldhouse, and the Indiana War Memorial. So they are the top 10 currently. So maybe try and tick some of those off.
Cool, but we'll leave it there. We don't know what's happening with me and Archie next week. You'll find out, obviously, the week after is Long Beach. And then the Indy 500 Open Test, which you mentioned at the start, is in the week after Long Beach, which is when drivers are first on the track at the Speedway ahead of all the kind of formal practice in May. But as always, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening. And we'll see you next time.